So today what we're going to be talking about is really something that's very current with what's happening now, in that about 95% of people who are working today in the world are open to quitting their job and moving somewhere else. So all this transition is great on one level, that you can really be mindful of where you are with work today and how are you going to make that better. But a lot of people don't know how to move to the right place. And this talk is really going to be about what can managers do to keep people at the workplace and keep them happy. Now, what I ended up doing, I started a course at Harvard University called The Positive Workplace. And basically this talk is going to be about that Harvard course, which I am bringing over to Hult. So it's pretty much the same content. And the basic idea is that we want to look at research-based scientific methods that work at keeping people happy at the workplace. So during COVID, I got a master's degree at the University of Pennsylvania in positive psychology, and my thesis was based on positive psychology in the workplace. How can you make people happy at work? So the interesting thing that happened with the positive workplace is how popular it became. By the way, in the chat, if you would put in your questions for Stephen, if Stephen feels that a question is relevant to what I'm talking about right now, he's going to turn his camera on, wave at me. We'll pause and answer the question so that we can have as much of a conversation as possible. So I want to tell you about some of the attendees that came to this course. The managing director of the Center for Disease Control, they came. And I was shocked that such a high-level government official came to our first course. Everyone else that came were also directors at government agencies from the United States or the United Arab Emirates. And what the CDC wanted was, they said that people were saying, what's the point in doing my job if for the first time in my life, people aren't trusting what I'm saying? Because not everyone was trusting what the CDC was saying about COVID. And they were quitting their jobs and saying, why do all this work and effort if no one's going to listen to me? And basically it boils down to, I don't matter and my job no longer has purpose. We also had another government agency, which was a finance corporation, and I call it the Mother Teresa Bank. They basically finance projects around the world that banks don't want to finance. For example, they went to Ghana and they made a children's unit for prenatal care with an MRI machine. So that's at least a $10 million loan. No one wants to touch that in a country that doesn't have high GDP, or it doesn't look like they'd be able to pay that loan back. And so the US government actually quietly goes around the world doing these deals. And they came to our group because the war in Afghanistan ended. And all the projects that the US government had been doing to promote education and promote equality for women were all shut down overnight. And again, they all said, why bother? What's the point? So we find that this talk is actually very relevant to what's happening today. And we think it's going to be an important topic for at least the next 2 years. We ended up getting some media from the class. So we were interviewed in Forbes magazine, and I really liked the reporter. And I said, I really think that we really need to pop out to the world and tell them more about what's happening. If the CDC and the US government's coming to us, the problem's got to be big. And so what the reporter offered up to me is, why don't we do a podcast called Happy at Work? And why don't we interview top CEOs around the world and ask them how they make a happy workplace? So we have just started the podcast. We will be partnering on some level with Forbes, Harvard, and Hult to continue this podcast. Nothing has been released because we literally just started it. So we want to have a marketing plan in place. But so far, I want to share with you some of the insights that we've gotten from our first two guests, which were the CEO of Aston Martin and the CEO of McLaren Racing. And at Aston Martin, I said, well, what do you do to get people really engaged at work? What makes them happy? And he really surprised me, because he's not in the academic world at all, which he acknowledged. And he said, well, we give people psychological safety, meaning we make them feel that it's safe and okay to say, I've made a mistake, or I think I may have made a mistake. Can you check me? And it's having that psychological safety where they actually don't make that many mistakes because they don't hide their mistakes until they sort of blow up somewhere else, and then they get in trouble and they might lie about it or try to blame somebody else. By creating an environment where people feel safe to go to their manager and say, I think I've made a mistake, can you help me, allows them to win races, because you really can't make a mistake in Formula One. The competition is way too heavy. So this is one of the things that we learned from the CEO of Aston Martin on what he does. And what's interesting is during COVID, no one has quit Aston Martin, and they have over 800.
Oh, apologies for the short delays. It seems that our professor has lost connection. I will try to reconnect him. Please give me 1 to 2 minutes to fix that.
Okay, looks like we popped out for a second there. Stephen, where did you, what was the last thing you heard me talking about?
Apologies. Okay,
No
here we go.
worries.
Yeah, so you popped out with McLaren and what you learned from them.
Okay, great. So I'll just start from the beginning on McLaren. So the CEO of McLaren, I said to him, you know, what's really important to you? Oh, excuse me. I was actually on Aston Martin that I wanted to finish up on, that in 2018. So during COVID, no one quit Aston Martin. So that was a miracle there. But then in 2018, they actually went bankrupt, and the CEO twice stepped in with his personal savings and paid the payroll. He paid over, I think it was at the time, it was around 800 or 900 people on the payroll. He paid the entire payroll out of personal savings twice, and that built a huge amount of loyalty, and no one quit. And there are actually 2 Netflix series about this. So one is on Formula One. I think if you just Google Formula One, that Netflix series comes up. But the second one, which I'll put into the chat, were the people that owned Aston Martin. And this one is called Bad Boy Billionaires. And it was about, I believe it was 2 brothers from India that had owned Aston Martin Formula One. And then it goes through what had happened there. Over to McLaren, we spoke to Zach Brown, and I'm gonna type the spelling of his name in here because it's actually important. Zach Brown, nice guy. And we said, well, what do you do at your organization? And he said, fun. We make it fun because we actually work 7 days a week. We travel the world, and a lot of people that we're with that work for us, you know, are missing their wives, their husbands, their partners. If a child is born or there's an event, they miss it, and that can be depressing. So we make sure that they have a lot of fun when they are with us. Also, he has an open door policy. And again, he was the same as the Aston Martin CEO of, you need to come to me the minute you think you've made a mistake, and we will help you. You will not get in trouble if you tell us about a mistake. If you hide a mistake, you're in trouble. And once we fix the mistake, just don't do the same one again. We want you to grow and move forward. And then I asked him, what about people saying that a lot of students coming out of business school don't have skills or the right skills? And this is why Hult is so focused on skills-based. And so I was actually asking this question for you, and he got all excited, and he said, attention to detail. We have new graduates coming in, and they do not have attention to detail, and that's what they need to have. Also, he said, you have no idea how many people will send me their resume or an email or something, and they spell my name wrong. And he says, I stop reading from there, because if you can't pay enough attention to know how I spell my name, then I'm not going to give you my attention either. He also feels that there's too much light Google researching. You know, we spend a few minutes, you know, Googling a few quick facts about Zach Brown or McLaren, and he really appreciates people who do a deep dive on research. So attention to detail and really deep diving on your research. And he's okay in an interview if you don't know the answer to something. What he doesn't like is people just coming in with only having a smattering of the facts. So having a deep dive is actually important to him. And I see Kayum has in the Q&A, please define skills on this particular subject. So basically attention to detail is attention to detail to anything that needs to be done for the job. What he was specifically talking about was spelling, spell my name right. I will say that when I see freshmen coming into schools, and I understand that English is a second language for most people at Hult, typos on slides really shouldn't be happening. When people see a typographical error, it could be an innocent mistake, and usually it is, but again, it's lacking attention to detail. So I encourage people that are going to be doing slide presentations, which is something that you will be doing, get someone on your team where perhaps English is the mother tongue, or someone's English written form is so good that they could actually make sure that the attention to the detail on those slides is actually really important. And then again, what is important is niching into a subject. So really being passionate about something where you have deep and unique research, as opposed to, again, just sort of like, we want people to go deeper than Google. So what I suggest people do is you can go to Google Scholar to start getting facts. I just put that into the chat. The other one that I like is semanticscholar.org. And that one is going to get you more research-based articles. It's also AI driven, so it's a bit of a better search engine than Google when it comes to academia. So usually what I do is I look up a subject and I try to find some research facts around it. Next week, we're going to be interviewing the founder of Moderna, Robert Langer, who discovered the COVID-19 vaccine for Moderna. We've met him before. I met him in the summer when he was worth $2 billion, and now he's worth $5.5 billion. So we'll see what changes have happened there for him. And what's interesting about Bob is that he's a chemist and he is a professor at MIT. And so he's very much just a scientist. And so it's going to be interesting for us to find out, how does a scientist who might not have a high level of emotional intelligence, lead an organization that has gone public and is very much in the public eye on a daily basis? What do you keep people there? How do you keep them happy? So now to go into some of the research that we have for you, what we're looking at in the workplace is putting people into two camps. Either you're engaged or you're disengaged. And it's pretty simple to look at them. So if you look at the right-hand side of the slide, this is what we're trying to fix. People doing just the bare minimum, or worse, they're gossiping about the company. They're saying, I don't like working here. And they're actually an infection into the organization, where you could have good people that are excited to work there, but they start listening to the people complaining. It drags them down. Research shows that if you have 99 happy people at an organization and one person is really unhappy, that one person drags everybody else down. It's not the other way. The 99 happy ones do not drag the unengaged one into happiness. So it's basically like, it's like a cancer cell that's spreading in the organization. So it's really important to contain, isolate, eliminate, or train and try to recuperate these people and bring them into the engaged camp. So everything we're going to be talking about today is to get them into the engaged camp. Engaged people they're enthusiastic. They want to be there. They actually want to go further. You don't have to see when did they show up and when are they leaving. You don't have to watch them or micromanage them. They actually like being there. They're excited to go to work on a daily basis. So in the engaged people, you actually can create engagement if people are willing to do it. And the reason why it's actually worth doing this is that engaged employees have about 26% more revenue that they bring into the organization. So they make more money for the company. Also, engaged employees have over 80% chance of performing above average. So not only are these people happy and pleasant to work with and being productive, but these are the engine people that are making the organization money and moving them forward. So Gallup does actually a lot of work in this area where they have started to quantify scientifically what are the benefits. And you see here that absenteeism drops. So people calling in saying, oh, I have COVID symptoms today, but they really just wanted the day off. So that starts to drop. People that are in manufacturing, you get almost a 50% drop in safety incidents because people are happier. and they're paying more attention to detail. Also, over 50% of employees surveyed during COVID have started a drug or alcohol abuse problem. And when you're in manufacturing, if someone is impaired due to alcohol or drugs, then of course you're going to be having more safety incidences. Along with the drop in safety, you're also going to get a drop in product defects because people, again, are paying more attention to detail. Those that are in more of a service industry are going to have higher productivity and higher profitability, which is what we just took a peek at. And these numbers do move based on which organization you're in, which industry you're in. So these are basically averages to take a look at. So let's take a look at the question that just popped into the chat. This is from Rendy. Hi, Rendy. Which one is better, that we focus on the results orientation or the process? Which is more important than getting the target, meaning the person or the team already did a good effort but failed? What I would say is you want both. You want to make sure that you have a process that is going to be good, but you also want to have backup plans, which is in my slide deck under the Hope module, where you want to have multiple ways to accomplish the goal. Most people say, okay, I'm gonna try to achieve this goal, and I'm going to go at it with one strategy. Have 3 strategies, because if the first one doesn't work, you have the second one, you have the third one. You can also get advice from your peers. Hey, this is my plan. Do you have a better idea? And use their free advice as a way to make this actually better. If you involve people on the process and they like the process and they agree with you, if you fail, they still like you because you did something that the whole group approved of and you had buy-in from the organization. And you're all going to learn and say, okay, well, we thought it was a good idea. It didn't work. What's plan B? Let's make sure that plan B is going to be a good one. So I would say, make sure that the process has buy-in from the organization where people agree with what you're doing. Have plan B and plan C behind it, and you should be just fine. Typically, what a good manager will do is they'll say, go do it on your own, figure it out. If you need me, then come to me if you need some help. And what I would do is involve them and say, thank you for the autonomy. This is what I'm planning on doing. Just want to let you know, if you have a better idea or some guidance, great. And they'll probably tell you from experience, 90% of what you're doing is a good idea. Here's a little change on this 10%, or maybe they'll introduce you to somebody. So I definitely involve people in my process. Now, globally, this is what an organization looks like. If you put all the employees in a boat, 29% are engaged. So these are the ones that we want. These are the people that are making more money for the organization. They're happier, lower absenteeism. They stay at the organization longer. You don't have trouble with these people. So these are the gems that we want. 19% are actively disengaged. This is where we have what we call presenteeism, meaning you're present physically, you're absent in your mind. So physically present, but you're psychologically absent. Very unhappy people. What I have found in my experience is acknowledging where they are and asking them, is there anything that you would be willing to work on to change? So we're going to offer them training programs. We're going to offer them ways to look at their job in a different way. Maybe they need to do a different job. I actually don't spend that much time on these people because they're already halfway out the door. What I do say to managers is, you could make it really easy for them to find another job. To say, we'll keep you on the payroll for 2 weeks, spend some time looking for another job. If you want to go have an interview during the day, we'll support you with that. But it's important to get them out of the organization if they're not going to be willing to move into the engaged camp. But what we really want are the 52% not engaged. These are the people who you can impact. These are the ones that are like, I would love to have a wonderful job where I like coming here every day, and it's okay. You know, I'm content. I'm not jumping out of bed to come to work, but I'm also not complaining. I'm in this middle area. And if you encourage them, would you like to be happier at your job, have a higher growth path, make more money, be more satisfied, and be thrilled with where you're spending half of your waking day? If they say yes, add these two numbers together, the 52 and the 29. Now you're looking at 80% engagement. That's your potential. If you just get one of these people into the front of the boat, you're winning. You don't need to have everyone. if you just get one person. So what we want to do is move these orange people up into the blue front of the boat, and the red ones, either get rid of them or give them the opportunity to come into orange and come into blue, but you will probably find that most of them would be actually better working somewhere else. There is a Harvard Business Review article that I wrote last year on this. It's actually taking positive psychology techniques into a management tool process. So there are actually 6 specific techniques on how to manage an organization. So if you are a manager or thinking of being a manager, you could literally be a new manager, you've never managed people before, and use this article as your management tool strategy. Again, it's been published in HBR, and I will be teaching this at human resources classes at Hult. But this is a QR code for you to take a look at the article. And I'll put into the chat if you need me to go back to that slide. Basically, just open up your phone and go to the QR code. So what we're looking at here is called positive organizational behavior. So this is the umbrella of what I study and what I'm teaching. And it's basically sort of like the scientific term around it. And really what we're looking to do is study human beings, study their strengths, study them as people, study their brains, and learn how we can manage them from that perspective to get increased performance. So this is what we're looking to do. Now, positive organizational behavior is different from management theory, or let's say a professor or an economist or a business leader saying, hey, this is my idea, and this is what I think we should do. Well, that's fine, but that's not positive organizational behavior, because we only will talk about things that are grounded in theory and research. So there's been experiments that have been done that show this strategy works or it doesn't work. And I'm going to ask you just to pop into the chat, if you could only do one thing at work. So imagine that you're a manager and you want to make people happier at work. What's one thing that you would do that could make people happier at work? So just put that into the chat and I'll just take a look at what you have in there. And typically I'll just kind of give you an example of what people would start with is giving people raises. So I'm going to put into the chat, giving people raises. So that could be, let's say, my idea, but I'd like to hear what your ideas are. So all ideas are fine. Nothing's going to be judged or, oh no, that's wrong, that's not right. I'm just curious if people are going to pop out one. And if you're thinking and you're not coming up with a great idea, what would you want at work? What's one thing that you want at work that you think would make you happier? Okay, so Randy's saying valid measurement. Okay, so measuring the right things. Salma's saying granting my people have a great environment to work. Okay, and Salma, if there's something more specific in there, like I'll put in a few things that we typically see. Free lunch. This is what we get at Google. They also do free breakfast and dinner, which keeps you working there a little bit longer. Some people would want, let's say, health insurance. Any other ideas that you're popping up? So again, think for yourself, what do you want? Hybrid remote work option. Yes, so Kushagra, that's a super popular one. And what's coming down now on that one is it's coming down to looking like you're allowed to have 3 days remote and 2 days in the office. And we believe that there might be a pendulum swing on people demanding remote only. A lot of people got puppies. I got a puppy. Some people had babies. It takes a long time to take care of them. One thing that we are noticing with people that are just remote is that they lose out on advancement opportunities. And CEOs are saying that they are out of sight, out of mind. So people may say, I want the remote, but when they see that people are starting to pass them up or not getting opportunities, they may want to go into the office. So we think that trend might actually adjust, but right now it looks like they're doing a 3-2 offer. Juan is saying better offices and workplaces. Yes, they're actually doing that now. Where they're finding is that since not everyone's going to be in the workplace at the same time, they're doing a desk sharing opportunity. So you don't have to have as many desks and there's more room to have like family rooms, the ping pong tables, just more of an atmosphere of just kind of hanging out. Camilla's having competitive salaries. Competitive salaries is interesting. That has been one of the strongest and oldest tools that we've used. What has actually been more important to people currently that we've been discovering with the research is having purpose and meaning. People would rather earn less money, but have a job that they thought mattered and had more purpose and more meaning in their lives. Paloma is saying, taking into account all opinions, flex work, promotions, compensations. So I'm going to hang on the flex work. So the flex work, there's some really interesting data that's coming out of Iceland on the 4-day work week. And they're finding that if you put people to a 4-day work week, meaning it's still 9 to 5, you don't stuff in more hours in those 4 days, the salaries stay the same. The hours drop to about 36 hours. So it's about a 36-hour work week. And it is 4 days. They found that nothing went backwards, but that productivity either stayed flat or went up about 5%. And basically, all the little time-wasty things that we do at work, like hanging out, get a cup of coffee, going to the bathroom when you don't really need to go to the bathroom, that those extra times go away. It's more of a heads down, working environment. So basically the wasted time has been taken away, and the 4-day work week has been super popular. So we're probably going to be seeing more of that into the environment. Shania is saying creating a work-life balance atmosphere. Yeah, some good things that we're seeing is that if they had doggy daycare or childcare that is at the place, then people are going to be more inclined to not quit because their children make friends with the other children, and that's going to get more retention. So literally sort of hooking people into the organization with things that are so great that they don't want to leave them behind. And childcare is a big one. You could also have free parking or like a free commuting pass, things that just sort of grease those wheels. Let me say that your name slowly so I can say it right. Azamoptech. I think I got that partially right. So entertainment, team building activities. Yes, team building activities. With that one, what we want to be able to do is do team building activities and icebreakers where I can see you as a person and I get into your personal life, not in an inappropriate way, but like I'm a sailor. I started the Hult sailing school, sailing team. So anyone that comes to the Boston campus, we have a 40-foot sailboat. We take about 9 people out twice a week. Anyone that wants to do that, and we just chat and we make friends. So anyone that's interested in sailing, I've made friends just on that hobby. There's other people. We have another professor here in Boston. He likes to run. So he has a running club. He basically says, I'm running from 12 to 1. Come with me. It's going to be easy and fun. So we do these activities where we get to see you as a human being, and it becomes more enjoyable. And I want to stay because I have friends at Hult that I hang out with. So the team building is important. And Salma's just having doing a little edit here. I meant atmosphere, having a great and engaged team. Yes, once you put in the strategies that will create that engagement, then basically everyone is super helpful in having a great time. Kushagra is saying training programs to help employees build skills. Yes, so Kushagra got the #1 reason why people are quitting, and it's that they don't have growth opportunities. So if you want people to stay, give them training programs. And that reminds me, the CEO of Aston Martin, one thing that he had done when he was at Ford is he wanted to move into another area for a promotion. And his existing supervisor said, no, you're my best engineer. I'm not going to promote you because I can't have a department that doesn't have great people. Well, what he ended up doing was he quit Ford and then got rehired in the new Ford division. And the person that hired him in the new division said, I do the exact opposite with my people, that I get the best, I promote them up and out of my department as soon as possible so that they can grow. And he goes, you know what happens? When they get promoted, I get 10 people wanting to come into my department. So since I promote people, I get more people wanting to come to my department. But the department that you just left is like a little bit of a prison. People don't want to go in there because they know they're not going to get out. So that's actually one of the best things you can do, is give people a training program and give them growth. So Liza's saying a clear career path. Yeah, people want to know where they're going. I actually had a meeting with my dean yesterday and said, this Forbes podcast is taking off, and I'm talking to really important people in the world, and I want to share that with the Hult students. We need to have a grad program where we're just going to be doing CEO case studies based on the Forbes things. I think we need an executive ed program. That's actually moving me into being able to teach new kinds of courses. And they're basically like, yeah, we think this is great. So they're supporting me. They're not saying, well, no, you're actually signed up to teach these classes and that's what fits the schedule, and nice idea, but we're not going to do anything with it. That's really discouraging. So giving me the clear career path and being open to seeing what am I interested in, but I'm also smart enough to present it in a way that Hult is getting a benefit out of something that I'm interested in doing career-wise, which is why we're talking about this today. So yeah, basically, so one thing that we haven't gotten, believe it or not, the number one thing to get people to stay at work is having a best friend. Having a best friend at work is the number one thing that the research has shown us that works. And the reason is let's say that you get called away at another job, they make you an offer, more money, etc. It all looks really good, but then it's like, oh, I'm going to lose my friend. And they can't guarantee I'm going to make another best friend somewhere else. So for example, Ruth, Alex, and Kiki in Hult, they come to my roof deck twice a month, and we have a cocktail party and chat. Professor Nyland Mortimer, he drives me to Walden Pond, and we swim at sunrise in the pond. And if I were to leave Hult, I would leave my friends. So having a best friend is actually going to keep people retained at the organization. And you can control that by making sure that you have these team building activities that we've already seen, where we're actually getting people to know each other, like having icebreakers where you could have, let's say, if it's all remote, you could have these Zoom cocktail parties. And I've seen organizations do this. They mail you $20 so that you get out, buy the bottle of wine that you want or whatever beverage of choice you have. And then you just sit and you just talk socially. There's no chat about work. And you can do things like show and tell, like, let me show you my painting or show you my puppy or how I cook something. It actually gets people to start to see each other as human beings that they like. Kayum was put in here, be honest with your team, no fake promises. Yeah, Zach Brown had talked about that in the McLaren interview, and he said that he has an open door policy where you come in and he's there for you. And I said, well, what do you do with someone that has come in from another organization and that hasn't been their experience, and they just think that you're not telling the truth? And he said, well, what happens is I have to keep the door open and I have to do what I promise. And eventually someone's going to walk through the door and see that I'm being honest and truthful, and that the open door policy does work. Only then, when people see that happening and the person that actually came to Zach goes back into the factory and says, yeah, Zach really helped me out with this, it's when they start to see other co-workers seeing that the promise is true, that's when they start to trust Zach. So they don't believe him when he says it, but they believe other workers when they have had that positive experience. So Kayum, you're correct with what you're saying, be honest with your team, no fake promises, but they're not going to believe you until other coworkers say, yeah, it's true. That's been my experience. So yeah, these are all great things in the chat. The next thing that we do with positive organizational behavior, it's the blue one, which is very important, is that we look at things that are state-like versus trait-like, meaning we're only going to train you on things that are going to be changeable. So for example, one thing that we teach people is hope. And hope is basically, it's not, the research says hope, really what it basically means is that you're intrinsically motivated to do something and you have 3 ways to get there. So having backup plans will have you feel more hopeful that you can accomplish the goal because you're hitting it from so many different angles. That's state-like, meaning that we can change your behavior. If you're used to having one plan and either it's success or failure, it's binary, that's state-like. Trait-like is something that we can't help you change. Like I have blue eyes. That's a trait that I have. You can't make my eyes brown. There's no training program that's going to turn the color of my eyes. So we don't try to change things that are traits that are unchangeable. Like we have found that humor works in the workplace. It's also great for negotiation. But if you're not funny, we can't teach you to be funny. So we only focus on state-like things that we can actually change. And I'm going to move to the Q&A box here. So Siama says, what if the organization already helps employees to build skills, but there are some employees who just want to find an experience in that company and then left? So Selma, tell me a little bit more about that. Let me just read this again. What if the organization already helps employees to build skills, but there are some who just wanted to find one kind of experience and then they left? Well, what we would like to do in that situation is have a culture where we say to people, listen, we want to promote you and we want you to grow. And so here we go. So Selma might have someone who said, I want to come to the organization and learn X. Okay, then they've learned X and now they're done and they're bored. You really want to have psychological safety in place, meaning I feel safe going to my manager, telling them exactly what's on my mind, being really transparent and not being afraid that I'm going to get some negative feedback, and tell them, okay, I'm done with X. I want to do Y, and Y doesn't exist right now. Can you create Y for me? You want to have that open door policy. You want to have that psychological safety where you have that person before they leave the organization tell you what it's going to take to keep them there. And then you see, okay, how close can I get to getting a yes to that person's idea? So for example, literally, I did it with my manager at Hult yesterday. She did not know about the Forbes podcast or what I was doing because I just started it, and she's not a mind reader. And when I told her about it, and I said, this is where I want to grow. I want to do more of this, because Hult students get really excited when they see something that is current, live, and relevant in industry. And if we're a part of that, they get really excited. And especially the people that are into Formula One, they just got so excited that we had two Formula One CEOs. And when I told her the idea, she had to sit there for a second and think, okay, well, how can we take these really interesting CEOs talking about important things that are very current and turn that into a class or a webinar? Like we're doing a webinar on it right now, thinking, how can we actually accommodate Michael, and how can we make the organization do better? So it's not just about pleasing me. Well, this is what Michael wants to do, and so let's just try to keep him happy. So you really want people to come to you and say, I came for X, I did X, I'm ready for Y, this is what Y looks like, and have them tell you what they want, but also how it benefits the organization and the stakeholders, which that includes the customers. So everyone needs to be moving forward with this idea. But if the employee says, I want to do Y and we just can't accommodate that's just too far off, then I would say, go do what works for you. And they're going to say nice things about you. They're going to give you referrals. You could ask them, could you recommend someone that you would want to replace you? And they're going to say some good things about you when they leave the organization. And don't be surprised if they come back. People have come back to organizations after a few years. So I would keep it an open conversation, but you really need to have enough psychological safety where the person just doesn't leave because they say, well, I wanted to do Y and I didn't see Y here, and I just assumed it wasn't here. You really want to have them talk to you so that you can at least have a conversation and try to save them. Then we have from Ivan in the chat, what insight could be shared about the balance on providing safety and challenging organizations to achieve higher levels of performance? There's actually a really interesting YouTube video, and it's called MAP. I call it MAP, and I'll just put it into the chat. It's Mastery, Autonomy, and Purpose. There was a study that was done on what motivates employees. It was done by the Federal Reserve and MIT. And what they found was money worked on really simple tasks, like, move this pen from here to there and I'll give you $1. That worked. But more complex things, money actually didn't work. that what they found that motivated people was the natural state of human beings wanting to master something. If we're set out to do something, we want to do it well. So for example, here's my coffee cup. And if I wanted someone to like hand paint this coffee cup, people would rather want to do it well versus do a sloppy job. It's just innate to us. Autonomy is letting someone paint the mug however they want. Like, this is what we're trying to replicate. However you accomplish this is going to be up to you. I have an open door if you need some help. And purpose is letting them know these cups are important. They're going to be going to important people doing important things, and you're going to be helping them by giving them a great cup of coffee in the morning. So when people feel that they can master something and they have that opportunity and they can do it in their own way, and they feel that what they're doing is important, then you end up getting a great team. So back to Ivan's thing about, okay, we want to have the balance, we want to have the safety, we want the ping pong table and the free food and the fun, but okay, what about working and being productive? You can challenge people and say, look, we have a great work environment here, like at McLaren and Aston Martin. We do all this great stuff for you. By the way, your job is to win races. That's why we're here. If we don't win races, we don't have an organization. So we'll give you all the free food you want and the flex time and 3-day work week. In exchange for that, you need to perform for us. And when you get a team and you ask the team, do you want to win races? If you want to win races, then you want to work here. And that's the primary one. And then behind it is getting you all the support, your work-life balance, your flex time. So it's okay to say to people, we're going to have a challenging environment. We're going to be thought leaders. We're going to move it forward, and you're going to work hard. It's okay to put that in there. It's not about just making it fun and happy for them. It is an exchange that if you want to have this balanced life with all these great benefits, you got to perform because someone needs to pay these bills. And if you're winning races, there's going to be enough money for, the free lunch. But if you're losing races and people are just eating, it's not going to work. So it is okay for you to demand high quality from people and say, this is part of our culture. And a lot of people want to be number one. There are a lot of people that would say, yeah, I want to do this. I don't want to just loaf around and get just the benefits and not put in the effort. That does get boring. So I would say taking a look at the YouTube video on mastery, autonomy, and purpose, and it was the Federal Reserve study. There you go. Okay. So just keep popping things. We're actually moving into the last few minutes of the talk. So this is where we have time just for Q&A. So what I'm going to do is continue to do the lecture. And when a question pops into the chat, I'll just stop and just answer the question. So the research that we've looked at is what does actually work psychologically to get people to love work. And it's actually called the hero model. So if we can teach people how to have more hope, how to have more resilience, how to be optimistic, and how to advocate for themselves and feel like they can do something on their own, self-efficacy, together, this is going to work for the organization. It doesn't matter what the industry is. So this is together called PsyCap, or psychological capital. Psychological capital is a relatively new term. It's only been around for a few years. Everything is research-based. So we have data going back 10 years, several studies. My thesis was based on this, and I have about 200 resources in there. So that's actually not a lot for an industry that's pretty new. To give you an example, there are about 65,000 research articles on self-efficacy, because that was started back in the 1960s. So psychological capital has what's called the hero model, where you are teaching people hope, efficacy, resilience, and optimism as a package. So look at these as like car parts. As parts, they stand alone on their own, but when you put the parts together and it becomes a car that moves, then you have psychological capital, and it's stronger than the individual parts. And let me just see what's popped into the chat. Beautiful. Yeah, we have 10 minutes left. And so we're just open for anyone to pop in questions. So whatever your question is fine. It can be like any topic. We don't have to stay on topic with the slides. So whatever's on your mind. The reason that we get competitive advantage is that we're always looking for something better. So back at the beginning of time, we looked at competitive advantage based on economics. So what do you have? I have a gold mine. Okay, great. You literally have a gold mine. So you can make a business because you have that, some kind of tangible asset. Then as we became more evolved, we moved into human capital. What do you know? And this is where we started to get into like consulting businesses and selling information. Like Bob Langer, he made all this money because he figured out the COVID vaccine. It's not the fact that he can manufacture the vaccine, it's that he figured out what's the formula. That's where the money was. It was his human capital. Then we moved into social capital. Who do you know? It's really important. Like literally, these CEOs would have never given me these interviews had I not been affiliated with the Forbes person, as well as being affiliated with Harvard and Hult. Having those three brand names together got them to say, okay, I don't know who Michael McCarthy is, but I know these three brand names. I'll do a 30-minute interview. So we use social capital to get the podcast to work. And now what we're teaching people is, positive psychological capital, which is, who are you? We're trying to develop you as a person. And the interesting thing about PsyCap is that this helps your personal life. This isn't just about doing improvement for you at work, but you can actually go back home and be a better partner, be a better friend, have more peace of mind just with yourself personally. Randy has into the chat, does age matter? When someone 50 years old, is it still okay to apply to a job in a big company? I would say a big yes. The one thing that people, if you're over 50, people think you're too old to get a job. However, I think that can be heavily argued because I'm over 50, so I can argue that too. First, I'd say, go where you're going to be appreciated. So academia, they don't care how old you are. Actually, the older, the better, because you have more experience, so that they're okay with that. What I would do with a company is explain to them, I bring wisdom, experience, and maturity to the organization. And I'm not going to have these things that are going to get in the way that you would have with younger people. Okay, I'm a 50-year-old male, and I'm not going to have any more children, so I don't need paternity leave. We need to have paternity leave because we need to, procreate the species. But you can depend on this one employee not popping up saying, well, I'm going to take 3 to 6 months off because I just had a kid. We're not going to have that issue. Or I just got married and I went a honeymoon, or I'm tired because the baby was up all night. So you could show your benefits and your strengths of saying that, I'm wiser, I'm more experienced, I'm more reliable. You don't have to get me a ping pong table. I can actually be self-motivated. I don't have to come to you with like little things like how to run an Excel spreadsheet. I already know how to do that. So I would say you sell yourself and also offer up the fact that you could mentor the younger people in the organization on softer skills. We had a guest speaker yesterday at Hult. He's a friend of mine. He designed shoes for Prada, Gucci, Michael Kors, Skechers, and it was in my ethics class. And he was talking about how his Prada shoes were being counterfeited by the factory that was manufacturing for him. And so we did a case study. How would you get around the factory that you need to make your shoes to stop stealing from you? So that's an ethical dilemma. And you're not going to be able to sue people in a foreign country, and there's no patent protection. So it was one of these difficult ones. And, our speaker was 70 years old. And he basically explained that when the students came up with their case studies of, we'll sue them, he would say, well, that's great, but when you're a new designer, you don't have the money. And do you really want to try to launch a lawsuit in China when you're coming from Italy? Like, that's going to be really expensive. We don't have the money for that. So that idea actually doesn't really work. What he ended up doing was going to a friend who was actually one of the largest shoe manufacturers in the world, who had business with that factory, and had that person call the factory to say, listen, he's my friend, cut it out. And that was it. He had a friend. And so the whole lesson was about, if you have friends that are more powerful than you, they can advocate for you. And they're called consigliares, which is the benefit of networking and having friends in industry. And so this is only something that a 70-year-old person could come up with, that I've been in the business for 40 years. I have these relationships that you're not going to have when you're 20 years old. But when you're 20 years old, start making those relationships now. Like, relationships and networking is actually more important than some of the facts that you know. So I would definitely promote the 50-year-old person is actually an asset in the organization. So in our last few minutes, I'll dive a little bit deeper on how some of these psychological capital things work. Self-efficacy is basically you saying in your own head, I can do this. I can do this. That's basically what self-efficacy is. Again, it's one of the most researched things in psychology. There's about 65,000 articles out there about self-efficacy. Albert Bandura is pretty much a big person in that. And what you're looking at for self-efficacy is you saying to yourself, I can do it. So the first one, there's 4 ways to do it. The first one is your own experiences. Hey, I know how to do a Zoom seminar because I've done a Zoom seminar before. So saying I have experience, I've done it before, and I'm confident that I can do it again. So that's the first one. The second one is called vicarious experiences, where I see someone else. So this usually happens with the race. Oh, I see someone like, climbing up this rope. You look at them and you're like, I'm in better shape than them. If they can do it, I can do it. So looking at someone else do a task and you feel if they can do it, I can do it. That's the second way. The third way is having someone talk you into it, where they go, hey, Michael, you can absolutely do that marathon. Go for it. It's going to be fun. I know you can do it. So having someone who would be encouraging to you will increase self-efficacy. And the fourth one is your own internal body, like how you feel, that when someone says, hey, Michael, do you want to do a marathon? If my stomach turns in nervousness, that's a no. But if I get butterflies in my stomach, like excitement, then that's going to be a yes. So my own body giving me the message of this is a good thing. This is something that I want to do. The next one, optimism, is where you basically make a prediction in your mind that the future is going to be okay. Now, learning optimism can be done. And what's cool about it is you earn more money versus pessimists, and you live longer. And you have a stronger immune system, so you don't get sick as much. So learning optimism is actually really important. And this is the inner voice that says to you, oh, you're going to get an A on the paper, or oh my God, you failed it, that kind of thing. So optimism is actually one of the easiest ones to turn around. And then hope, which we've mentioned a little bit, is really persevering towards a goal and then just redirecting paths toward that goal, which basically means you have multiple backup plans. So we only have 2 minutes left. So let me just take a look. So Stephen, do we need to do anything for our last 2 minutes, or should I just keep going through slides and looking at questions?
Feel free on how you planned out the presentation, and I don't see any new questions coming in. For everyone that has the questions, feel free to put it in the chat, and otherwise I would take it from there if you're saying, okay, we are heading towards the end.
Great. Okay, so last call for questions. The bar is about to close. The next one is resilience, and this is a really interesting one. I actually just did a TED Talk on resilience. It's called opportunity spotting, where you can actually find a growth opportunity out of a tragic event or something negative. So something bad happens, but you actually find a growth opportunity out of that. And a lot of that's resilience. The Japanese have a great saying, it's something like fall down 7 times, get up 8. It's basically just simply bouncing back after you've had something that went against you. So the good news is that you can actually learn all 4 of these. And so we've had like a little bit of a taste of what these 4 are, and we're probably going to be doing more of these sessions. I know I'm going to be going to Mexico City, so I'll probably be doing something on this that might be a little bit longer, where we can actually do exercises where I would be teaching people how to do psychological capital. So this is the end of our 1 hour. I appreciate all the people in the chat and the Q&A. It always makes it much more interesting when people are going to be participating and kind of talking to me. It just makes Zoom a little bit more of a